Relationship between pressure and temperature, kinetic theory of gases. In order to connect the macroscopically observed state variables of a gas such as temperature, volume and pressure with the microscopic variables such as particle mass and particle velocity, the kinetic theory of gases was developed. With its help it is possible, for example, to deduce the temperature or the pressure of a gas from the mean kinetic energy of the molecules. In order to develop a model of the behavior of gas molecules, some assumptions must first be made. First, it is assumed that the gases are ideal gases. The following assumptions are used as a basis. First, the gas molecules are considered as mass points. Second, the molecules do not exert any binding forces on each other. Third, collisions between gas molecules are completely elastic as well as collisions between molecules and surfaces. This means that there is no loss of energy in a collision. Fourth, all molecules move completely randomly, which means that they have no preferred direction and are therefore statistically distributed in space. This means in particular that the influence of gravity on the molecules is neglected. With these assumptions, in the following we will describe the pressure of an ideal gas on the basis of the kinetic energy of the molecules. To do this, we must first consider how the pressure comes about at the microscopic level. The macroscopically measurable pressure of a gas as force per unit area can be explained at the microscopic level by collisions. When gas molecules collide with an interface, they exert forces analogous to tennis balls thrown against a racket. If, for example, a gas under high pressure is enclosed in a cylinder, the particles contained in it collide constantly with the cylinder wall and exert forces. These impact forces can be clearly felt when the cylinder is closed with a piston. The animation shows the collisions between the gas molecules and the piston surface. In contrast to the animation, due to the large number of particles normally contained in a gas, one will not feel a single collision of a molecule, but will experience a constant force. The force required to keep the piston in position is solely due to those collisions between the gas molecules and the piston surface. This is what we then experience as gas pressure. From the definition of the pressure as force per unit surface area, the gas pressure can finally be determined with the given formula. It is very easy to imagine that the gas pressure in the cylinder will be higher the more molecules collide with the piston within a certain time. This depends on the number of molecules contained in the cylinder. This is because the more molecules there are in total, the more can collide with the piston surface and will exert forces. This is already shown by everyday experience when inflating a bicycle tire. The more air molecules are pumped into the tire, the greater the pressure. So if you increase the particle density in the cylinder, the pressure increases. On the other hand, the gas pressure depends on the speed at which the particles hit the piston surface. The greater the speed, the more intense the collisions and the greater the impact forces. This, too, is shown by everyday experience. If a bottle filled with air is placed in the sun, the pressure in the bottle will increase as the temperature rises, since the speed of the molecules increases with higher temperature. So if you increase the kinetic energy of the molecules in the cylinder by increasing the temperature, the pressure increases. In order to determine the gas pressure in the cylinder, the number of particles that collide with the piston within a certain time delta t must first be determined. Only those molecules can hit the piston which on the one hand actually fly towards the piston and on the other hand are close enough to the piston surface to collide with it within the given time. In general, the velocity of a particle consists of three components: an x, a y, and a z component. In the case shown, however, only the velocity component in the x direction is relevant for the pressure on the piston, since the molecules actually hit the piston with this velocity. With the other velocity components, the molecules just fly along the piston, so to speak, but do not hit it. First, it is assumed that the x component of the velocity is identical for all molecules. Since no direction is preferred by the molecules, half of all particles will move at this speed in the positive x direction and the other half in the negative x direction. However, not all molecules moving in positive direction can actually reach the surface of the piston within the given time delta t. With the assumed constant velocity, the particles can only cover a maximum distance delta s, which is given by the shown formula. However, this also means that only molecules that are less away from the piston than this maximum distance delta S can collide with the piston surface. This results in a volume within which the molecules must be located in any case in order to reach the piston surface within the given time. All other particles will simply not have the time to reach the piston within the given time. The so-called collision volume results from the product of the piston surface area A and maximum distance delta S, whereby the previously derived relationship can be used for the distance. Since the molecules are evenly distributed inside the cylinder, the particle density as the ratio of total number of particles N and total cylinder volume V can be used to determine the number of particles Nc contained in the relevant collision volume Vc. To do this, we simply multiply the particle density with the collision volume. At this point, it must be taken into account that the speeds or velocity components are statistically distributed. This means that half of the molecules have a positive and the other half a negative velocity component in x direction. Thus, the number of particles Nx in the collision volume that actually move in the direction of the piston is only half as large. For this relevant number of molecules, the shown formula applies. In the last step, the formula for calculating the collision volume Vc can now be used in the given equation. The resulting formula can now be used to determine the number of molecules Nx colliding with the piston surface within the time delta t on the basis of the velocity component in x direction. Let us now take a closer look at the collision of a molecule with the piston. Since it was assumed that only elastic collisions occur without any loss of energy, a particle bounces off the piston with exactly the same speed as it moved towards the piston. Thus, if a molecule moves with the velocity Vx towards the piston, then it moves away again after the collision with exactly the same speed. If we do not simply consider the speed at this point, but the momentum as the product of mass and speed, then the force acting on the molecule can be determined from the change in momentum over time during the collision. This force is applied by the piston and corresponds to the force required to hold the piston in position. This is what we ultimately experience as gas pressure acting on the piston. At this point, the momentum must be considered as a vector quantity. Since the momentum of a molecule is plus m times Vx before the collision and minus m times Vx after the collision, the momentum has thus changed in total by twice the absolute value of the momentum. This may sound a bit confusing at first, but in many cases you have the similar situation where this fact is much easier to understand. If, for example, the temperature changes from minus 20 degrees Celsius to plus 20 degrees Celsius, then it is changed by a total of 40 degrees Celsius, in other words, by twice the absolute value of the original temperature. We can now put the formula for the change in momentum, also called impulse, into the formula for the calculation of the collision force F. This is the force that a single molecule exerts within the collision time delta Tc. Note that the times marked in red in the two formulas do not necessarily have to be identical. The time in the first formula stands for an arbitrary considered period of time, within which the respective number of molecules Nx hits the piston. In the second formula for calculating the collision force, on the other hand, it is the time period in which the change in momentum takes place, meaning the collision time within which the molecule is in contact with the piston, so to speak. But now comes a crucial point. If we consider the gas as a kind of coherent mass, a so-called continuum, then within the time period delta t, the total number of molecules Nx in the collision volume will have changed their momentum exactly once each by the given amount. Thus, if we consider the total impulse of all molecules in the collision volume and therefore the total force that these molecules exert on the piston, then both times are indeed identical. This total force of the molecules is then obtained by multiplying the force per particle by the total number Nx of molecules hitting the piston. Considering that both times are identical in this case, we can use the formula marked in blue in the formula for calculating the total collision force. In this equation, we can now cancel the time period delta t and combine the two speeds to the square of the speed. This formula states that the force which the molecules exert is not dependent on the considered time period at all. This is also shown in practice. Because if the force were dependent on time, then the pressure would have to change with time. However, daily experience shows that the pressure in gases remains constant as long as neither the temperature nor the volume changes. Note that by squaring the velocity component Vx in this equation, we do not need to use the vertical bars to indicate the absolute value. This is because even if Vx is negative, squaring it gives a positive value. With the definition of pressure as the quotient of force and area, we finally obtain the given formula for calculating the gas pressure. In this equation we can cancel the area of the piston. Thus, the gas pressure is not dependent on the size of the piston. This is also shown in practice. No matter whether a large or small piston surface is used, the gas pressure is not influenced by this. Now it must be taken into account that in a gas not all molecules have the same velocity component in the x direction as originally assumed, but these are statistically distributed. Therefore, in the present equation, the arithmetic mean of the speed squares must be used to calculate the pressure. Note that the mean speed of the molecules must not be squared, but the individual speed squares must be averaged. This is a crucial difference, as the following example shows. For this purpose, we consider 5 particles with the given speeds. First we calculate the mean speed and then square it. In this case, the average speed is 3 meters per second and the squared value is therefore 9. In the other case, we first square the speeds and then calculate the mean value. This mean value of the speed squares is now 11.8. So we get a different result. Also note the different notation between the square of the mean speed and the mean of the squared speeds. In the derived formula, the pressure is given as a function of the velocity component Vx with which the molecules in a gas move in x direction. However, experience shows that the pressure in gases acts equally in all directions. So it makes much more sense to describe the pressure not only with respect to the x component, but as a function of the overall speed of the molecules or their kinetic energy. Therefore, as a last step, we need the relationship between the motion in x direction and the total motion of a gas molecule. This relation can be obtained in 2 different ways. Either by a kinematic approach or by an energetic approach. We will discuss both approaches in more detail in the following. First, we will go into more detail on the kinematic approach. For this purpose, we will take a closer look at the relationship between the velocity vector and its components. The magnitude of the velocity vector, called speed, can be determined from the individual velocity components as shown. Thus, for the square of the speed, the given relation applies. Of course, the mean value of the squared speed can then also be determined from the mean value of the individual squared velocity components. The velocity components of the molecules are statistically distributed and no direction is preferred. The mean value of the speed squares will thus be identical for all velocity components. In this way it is shown that the mean value of the squared speeds of the molecules corresponds to 3 times the mean value of the squared velocity components in the x direction. Or, to put it in other words, the mean value of the squared velocity components in x direction corresponds to 1/3 the mean value of the squared speeds. If we put this relationship into the previously derived formula for calculating the pressure, we get the given equation. This equation provides the relationship between the pressure and the mean value of the squared speeds without referring to a specific direction. At this point, we can not only link the mean speed of the molecules to the pressure, but also the mean kinetic energy. To do this, we simply extend this equation by a factor of 2. In this way, the term marked in red can now be interpreted as the mean kinetic energy of the molecules. We get the same relationship also by an energetic approach. We will go into this in more detail in the following. The starting point is again the given equation. We first extend this equation by the factor 2, so that we can interpret the term marked in red as the mean kinetic energy of the molecules measured in the x direction. Since the velocities are randomly distributed and no direction is preferred, the same speed distribution is obtained for any direction. This in turn means that the mean kinetic energy of the molecules in each direction is identical. However, the molecules do not only move in one direction but in 3-dimensional space. The mean total kinetic energy E-kin of the molecules then results from the sum of the mean kinetic energies related to the 3 spatial directions. Since the mean kinetic energies measured in the different spatial directions are identical, the total energy is equal to 3 times the kinetic energy in one spatial direction. or to put it in other words, the mean total kinetic energy is divided equally among the different spatial directions. Each spatial direction thus accounts for 1/3 of the total kinetic energy. If we use this relationship in the equation before, we finally get the same relationship between the pressure and the mean kinetic energy of the molecules of an ideal gas. Note that the mean kinetic energy of a molecule refers only to the translational motion. Compared to ideal gases, the molecules of real gases generally also show rotational motions and thus have rotational energy, but this has no effect on the pressure. The rotational energy increases only the energy in the gas, also called internal energy, but not the pressure. This is because the cause of the pressure are collisions, which come about through the translational motion and not through rotational motion. So we see that, as already explained at the beginning of this video, the pressure depends on the one hand on the particle density, and on the other hand on the kinetic energy of the molecules. If one uses the ideal gas equation in the form shown here, then a relationship between the temperature and the mean kinetic energy of the molecules can also be derived. In this equation, Kb denotes the so-called Boltzmann constant and T the thermodynamic temperature of the gas. First, we multiply the previously derived equation by the volume V. Now we can equate both equations. In this way, we finally obtain the relationship we are looking for between the mean kinetic energy of the gas molecules and the temperature. It turns out that for ideal gases the mean kinetic energy depends only on the temperature. Note again at this point that the kinetic energy refers only to the translational motion and not to other forms of energy such as rotational energies or vibrational energies. These have no influence on the temperature. According to the equation just derived, each molecule of an ideal gas at a given temperature has a mean energy of 3/2 kBt. The total energy contained in the gas in the form of translational motion is thus obtained by multiplying this mean energy per molecule by the total number n of molecules. This total energy present inside the gas is also called internal energy U. If at this point the term marked in red is replaced by the product of pressure and volume according to the ideal gas law, then the pressure can also be determined as shown on the basis of the so-called energy density UV of the gas. This volumetric energy density corresponds to the quotient of internal energy and volume. To avoid misunderstandings with the specific internal energy as a mass-related quantity, the letter V is added. It turns out that the pressure in ideal gases obviously depends only on the energy density, which means the internal energy present per unit volume. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Thanks for watching.